on Secretary Paderanga for his presentation.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm glad to be here. The Philippines managed to weather the storm that beset the world recently. The country avoided an economic recession, even as the crisis weakened many economies in the region. However, this respectable performance is not enough. These graphs show that poverty, income, and employment can be further improved. At the same time, the country's competitiveness relative to its neighbors can be enhanced even further. As the world economy slowly recovers, the country must move ahead, and every Filipino should feel this progress. The Aquino administration aims to create adequate employment opportunities for many more Filipinos in order to significantly reduce poverty. We must focus on the following broad directions. First, attain a high and sustained economic growth that provides productive employment opportunities, or what we will use an inclusive growth framework. We need to get into a higher growth path over the medium term, and there is need for structural changes to achieve that. For 2010, we expect GDP to grow at 5%. For 2011 to 2016, we are targeting a higher annual growth path that will bring us above 7%. At these growth rates, and given the right policies, economic gains will translate into higher per capita income and effectively reduce poverty. To achieve the high and sustained growth rates, the government will provide an enabling environment for private sector investment and entrepreneurship through, first, a stable macroeconomic environment, sound and consistent public policies, investment in infrastructure, for example, in electricity, transport, water, irrigation, solid waste management, and the environment. We will put in effective anti-corruption measures, the enforcement of the rule of law, and effective and efficient delivery of public service, including improvements in the investment programming process. Second, we will equalize access to development opportunities across geographic areas and across different income and social spectra. We will try to integrate the economy further. This will ensure that expansion of employment opportunities translate and reverberate towards poverty reduction. Among others, we will try for better education, primary health care and nutrition, and other basic social services. We will level the playing field through an equal access to infrastructure, credit, land, technology, and other productive inputs. And there will be unbiased and facilitated policies that promote competition as the government improves governance and strengthens institutions. Lastly, we need to formulate and implement effective and responsive social needs to catch those who are left behind by the character of a high sustained growth. And the manner of growth in a globalized economy has the real danger of leaving some sectors behind. Likewise, in recognizing the devastating effects of climate change in the future, social safety nets that support and capacitate vulnerable sectors are necessary to address poverty. Attaining the targets require addressing the gaps in the country's competitiveness. Bottlenecks such as corruption, inadequate infrastructure, costly and unreliable power, and bureaucratic red tape are undermining the country's growth. Power costs in the Philippines is one of the most expensive in the region, and we need a reliable and affordable power supply. Inadequate infrastructure, particularly in transport, have an impact on transport and logistic costs. Advancing infrastructure development will provide access to raw materials and markets, lower costs of transporting goods, and thus lower the prices of commodities. Improving governance, ensuring greater transparency and policy consistency, and lessening political discord are urgent concerns. We have already started some changes. The core program of the President is good governance, primarily reducing red tape and avoiding corruption. With effective implementation, we can lower the cost of doing business in the country to a predictable and sustainable basis. Investment infrastructure is a major challenge given the fiscal constraints. Thus, public-private partnerships in infrastructure development emerges as a feasible policy framework. In view of the huge investment requirements in infrastructure, government shall continue to encourage private sector involvement in the financing, construction, operation, and maintenance, and rehabilitation of major infrastructure in the country, primarily in transportation, power, and water subsectors. While there are completed and ongoing transport projects implemented through PPP under the amended BOT law, private sector participation in transport infrastructure development is being continually enhanced to augment government budgetary support for capital investment. Being pursued along the lines of PPP are the development and implementation of expressways, railways and airports, the privatization of individual ports or groups of ports, and the operation and maintenance of transport facilities. For effective public-private endeavors, it is essential that policy reforms be pursued to improve project and program development and implementation. The PPP framework calls for effective legal, institutional, and governance reforms. As a first step, the government is working towards improving the technical, financial, and legal, including contract writing, capacities of proponent agencies of the government. For example, the proper allocation of risk-bearing between the government and the private entity is an important area of concern for us. We will also revisit the joint venture guidelines and Philippine Build, Operate, and Transfer law towards more transparent and more accountable PPP processes and the faster implementation of PPP projects. Let me end by saying that in all of this, to use the Filipino language, sentro ang tao sa ating mga plano. In English, this means the people, the person is at the center of our plans. Thank you very much and good day.
Thank you, Secretary Paderanga.